AI is the largest change to our civilization since the internet or the wheel. And I don't think most people see it yet, but we're heavily involved in AI, and I'm like really, really excited about what's happening. For us, we are confident that executive assistants will still be needed and are still highly, highly valuable, because even if you string together different tools to help manage your email, manage your calendar, all that stuff, at the end of the day, founders come to us because they want a personalized, one-on-one, someone who knows them, who knows their preferences, who knows how they operate, how they speak, who's in their life, all of that stuff, and can act in real time. There's definitely like tools that you can use to streamline your calendar and email. But at the end of the day, like if you knew the breadth of tasks and responsibilities that an assistant can really help you with in your personal and business life, there's not, at least anytime soon, there's not AI that's going to disrupt that.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast, where we explore the world of entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to start, grow, and scale a successful business. We're on a mission to share our experiences, failures, insights, and advice with others. Whether you're just starting out in your entrepreneurial journey or you're looking to take your business to the next level, tune in and join the conversation about what it takes to succeed in the world of business.
We going full throttle.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast. I appreciate you being here today. I have Ryan with me. I am so excited for you to hear Ryan and his story and what he's doing. But first, before we dive into the episode, I just want to ask you for one small favor. If this episode resonates with you, my goal is to impact one person with this podcast. So if this resonates with you, please send it to one other person that you think would benefit from Ryan, his company, his story, and this conversation, because that would mean the world to me. That makes the investment of time worth it. That makes the investment of Ryan's time worth it. And our goal is to help people and help you get from point A to point B. So if this resonates, please do that. As always, I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the shares. I appreciate the comments. It means the world to me. Thank you for being here. Ryan, thank you for spending your time with me.
What's up, Grant? Thank you. I'm excited.
Let's do it. Let's dive in. So first off, when we were talking earlier, I was saying how I love your background. It's amazing. I love the fact that you have easily the best studio setup that I've had, and I've had as a guest in my show. So thank you for just bringing that level of authenticity to this, because I think just the overall quality grade is like just drastically improving. I wanted to ask you, because we're competing on the paintings in the background here. I want you to know. Oh, I don't know if that's a photo or a painting. You're keeping it a secret, but how much do you think I spent for each one of these?
All right. So the one on the bottom, the one on the top.
Yeah.
Do you have kids?
Yes, I have kids.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not an art curator, but maybe they're either like pretty costly paintings, or your kids painted them, and and so I don't know which one.
That's super fair. Yeah, both made by a 3-year-old. So I just wanted to see if I could trick you, and it didn't work. So you caught on. The fact that you're actually the only other person. There was one other person that was like, "Do you have preschoolers?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got." They're like, "That was definitely made by a preschooler."
No, I was the oldest of many children, and then I had a lot of cousins and nephews. So I've been around the block. I've been the oldest of every single. I've had babies around me all the time. I'm all about that. I get it. I know that life. My sister has 5 kids too, so yeah.
Oh my word. Yeah, my sister just had her 5th, and I have another sister that has 5, and then my other sister has 2. It's too many kids.
It's a literal zoo.
Yeah, it's too many. I don't even know their names at this point. Yeah. Anyway, so let's dive into the actual convo. So Ryan, you run a business where essentially you connect business owners with executive assistants. And I'm guessing it's not just business owners, it's just people that need executive assistants. So this term and this thought process of like the need for an EA, that was new to me until I read Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. He was the first person that was like, you probably should have someone on your team that is doing this stuff for you, because you need to focus on higher value tasks. But you've been running this for a while. What led you to start it? What led you to like see this as a passion of like, I want to solve this problem for business owners?
It's funny because the story actually starts a lot earlier than when I started my company. So when I was younger, when I was a kid, my dad would always get on to me about. So we grew up in Tennessee. So I grew up like in the mountains. And one of the tasks that I would have to do a lot of the times on the weekends was like clean up brush and like fallen trees and things like that in our front lawn. Yeah. And at the time we had like equipment. We had like a dune buggy and go-karts and stuff like this. So when I was a kid, I would just go to those big like bundles of sticks and logs and I'd wrap it in rope and then I would pull it behind my go-kart to the woods where it needed to be, disposed of. And stuff like that, my dad was always getting on to me for like cutting, he would call it like cutting corners, right? And there's been a theme in my life around the same exact thing. So from as a kid, like I would build Legos and I would sit there and just create these incredible contraptions and just spend hours and hours and hours doing this stuff. And I would win like science fair awards and things like that when I was young. And then I started playing around with like software and computers and tools, and I became a systems engineer. So as part of
that's what I was going to say. I was like, all the stuff you're talking about sounds engineer. It sounds like computer programmer, engineer vibe.
Yeah, but I was never focused enough to actually like learn how to program, like actually program and learn, all the different science, like physics and all that stuff. But I went to work when I was like right out of college. I went to work for a company and became a true systems engineer, working on fulfillment lines, like the software and the automation behind fulfillment lines and all this stuff. And basically, like from the moment that someone places an order until it gets to their doorstep, what are all the technical infrastructure involved? And so I've always thought about things in terms of systems. And then coincidentally enough, I was sent to the Philippines in the 2012, 13. And so I lived there for a while, and my job was to train teams of people for this multi-billion-dollar company that I was working for. And I learned that, because I remember when I left, the narrative around the Filipino people is that they're difficult to communicate with, they don't have good English skills, they're not that qualified, they're not that educated, they can't do specialized skills, they're mostly able to help with like really low level stuff. And they were actually like the vernacular that people were using was like they're a unit, really, really negative stuff. And so when I went and lived in the Philippines and I was working with this team of about 25 to 30 people, I realized how incredible and how skilled and gifted all of them are. And so I think that experience for me and living there and experiencing the culture and getting to know the people, it was eye-opening. It was definitely eye-opening. And I didn't do anything with that knowledge immediately. Like I left, came back to the States, I moved out to California, started a couple different companies. And it wasn't until I moved into something called the Entrepreneur House. And if you Google it, and if you look in like Entrepreneur Magazine, there's like
I have
like
questions
features
about this.
Yeah,
I have so many questions about it.
I moved into this house where it was this wild idea where all these founders get together and we all have different businesses. And I was the least successful person in that whole house, like for sure. And the idea is that we all come together, we share resources, mastermind. We have a chef, we've got someone who does our laundry, does the cleaning. We have wine nights and investors flying in from Silicon Valley and stuff like that to have these big, huge dinners where we connect and stuff like that. And so the process of being in close proximity to all of these founders, I started noticing, and this was in 2000, I moved in 2018, started noticing this common trend of like all these people that were very successful, their personal lives were shit, right? Like their personal lives were, they're stressed out. Yeah. They're worried about basically just barely hanging on from a personal perspective, like on the business front when they would get on meetings, like put together, etc. Yeah. But like a lot of things slipping through the cracks, emails, their personal relationships, their health, dates, doctor's appointments. And so I started kind of connecting in my mind during that time while I was living there. I was like, there's a system, there's a framework that I have experience with and that I think I could build and improve above and beyond what exists that would be really awesome. And that's how Assistant Launch started. And we started before COVID. And it was one of those things where the idea came to me, the system and the framework. I literally still, to this day, somewhere, I think it's like right here, but I actually have a notebook. I found this the other day where I wrote out with my other entrepreneur friends. I wrote out November 11th, 2019. And we wrote out literally it's right here. It's like, this was the MVP of the company. Right.
I love it.
And it was like, what do we need to do to be successful? And I said, I'm going to launch this in like 3 or 4 months. And my roommate, Matt, was like, oh no, you're going to launch in 2 weeks, November 11th, 2019. Here's what you're going to do. And that's how it all started.
That's awesome. Well, and you were in this house as an entrepreneur for another business, for a different business?
Before I came into the eHouse, I was actually, I had worked with my dad. He had his company back in 2017, 2015, 16, 17. His company just went in the tank. He lost his business partner, and he needed someone to come in and build systems and structure and operational stuff. And so I came in, and randomly, and this is an entirely separate conversation, but randomly he and I got put on this journey to live in New York City for 6 months to take on the biggest project of our life. And it was just he and I and another partner. And we were literally in New York. We had no money. We had $0. And we were just hopping from Airbnb to Airbnb. And this is my 50-something-year-old dad at the time. He's a go-getter. He's one of the best salesmen that I know. And we were basically pitching the MTA, the New York City MTA, to go in and restore their entire subway system. So the tile, cleaning it, getting the gum off the floor, because apparently Governor Cuomo, when he was down in the subways during that time period, was like, this looks terrible and we're going to spend billions of dollars to improve it. And so my dad's company, we ended up going to New York and spending 6 months, I've had literally script writers and people that have that I've talked with about this to make a movie. It was incredible. We lost it all, then we gained it all, then we got fired, and it was just father and son doing this whole thing. So that was what I was doing before, when I came into the eHouse, and there was an opportunity for me to launch something that was even more aligned with my passion of saving time.
Actually, that leads me to kind of a question, because I'm thinking it's based on what you're talking about, and based on just what I know about you so far, you're at your core an operator. It sounds like you're a systems person. So what's the difference? Because usually when I talk to CEOs, when I talk to founders, they're the type of people that are they're very visionary. They're not very structured. They're not they're regimented, but it's usually at a higher level, and they're almost too entrepreneurial, right? It's just most of the time it's that creative mind that's I just want to go do the cool stuff, and not many people are I really want to figure out the systems. I really want to figure out the details. I love it. And you've made a business doing those things. So why did you opt for, I want to start my own thing and be the founder and be the CEO of it, versus being I would love to be a COO and build the systems for a bunch of other people?
It's a really good question, and it's something that it's something that I don't normally get into when I have these discussions, but I think it's worth explaining. So when I was 8 years old, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and so this was a really common diagnosis when back in the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, everybody, if you struggled in school, but you were, I was acing all my tests and stuff like that, but I struggled in school.
Yeah.
And then I would go home and I would spend all my time building all these things. And so my parents were like, okay, we need to throw him on medication. So I got put on medication. And so part of me is an operator, right? But the other part of me is the visionary, the idea factory, the head in the clouds, all that stuff. And so really the operator side of me was born out of necessity, because I had to learn how to develop systems. I had to learn how to develop frameworks for living my life because I was coping with this. Now it's a superpower, right? But at the time it was like considered a disability, right? It's like I'm all over the place and my ideas are, and it's hard to make something come to fruition. I got tired of that. I'm like, I want to be really successful and I want to create something of meaning in the world. And so I have to develop a systems level approach to everything I do. So I actually am both.
So wait, so would you say like you compensated with like hyper discipline? Like, is it just like, was it medication that helps that kind of click and you're like, I'm going to set habits and I'm going to build structures for this because I know I need to? Or was it just kind of like a combination of things that happened at the same time where you're like, I need to do this? Because it sounds like no one's forcing you. It sounds like you're like, I want to do this myself.
Well, actually, to be clear, I was on medication until I went to college. And then when I went to college, I was like, this is not healthy. I don't feel good. And initially it was really difficult. Like it was difficult to have coping mechanisms, but like I developed those strategies during college to figure out how to stay focused and literally leveraging discipline. It's like going to the gym, learning how to get good sleep, surrounding myself with the right people. Getting mentors are huge, coaches are huge. And I was doing all this on my own. Like when I left the house at 18, it was very much you're on your own, and it's been like that since then. So,
are you into biohacking at all?
100%. Yeah,
100%.
We're actually we're building right now off-site. We're building we're going to be calling it the Founders Club. So it's this warehouse. It's kind of like the e-house was, right? But nobody's living there. So we have a warehouse. And we're going to be doing cold plunge and lots of gym equipment and having trainers come in and sauna and all the. I'm all into biohacking. I just took a cold shower before this, so yeah.
Nice. Do you have a, what is it? It's the Aura ring, or do you prefer how do you track your sleep?
I got the Whoop.
The Whoop. Do you love it?
But that's not how I track my sleep. The Whoop is I pay $30 a month to not look at any of the data. I pay $30 a month to just have a reminder that you need to be going to sleep. So this is just a trigger. That's it. And this is actually like the overarching theme of everything I do is what is this system that is going to allow me to be successful in whatever area that I want to be successful in. So like sleep for me is huge, and I'm big into sleep systems. It's like eye mask, red light, temperature controlled bedding, no light, air filter.
That's awesome.
Whoop,
that's awesome.
All that stuff.
That's really cool. What do you know? You say you don't track the data, but do you track your recovery at all?
I don't need to at this point. There was a time period where I would actually wake up and I would guess the percentage of my recovery, and I was getting within 10 percentage points almost every single time. And so I started realizing that you can actually intuitively sense, that's the important part, is like being able to intuitively sense how you're doing. And the same thing applies to any other discipline. Like when you're I'm doing weight training, like body transformation. I'm also really focused on nutrition. So like you really need to develop the like body feel of, am I training right? Like what's up with my body? What is it like if my shoulder is hurting? Like what's connected to my shoulder that might need some work? And I think that's kind of been like part of my journey the last couple of years.
Have you been focusing more on calisthenics?
No, but I do love calisthenics. I had a little sample of it when I was in Europe for a month, earlier this year. My trainer, obviously I didn't have access to gyms, and so I'm literally on the banks of the Dordogne River in France, and I've got Olympic rings, and I'm hanging from a tree, and I felt like I was Rocky. I'm I'm doing these things. And people were looking at me and stuff. It was fun, but I have done a little bit of calisthenics, and it is incredible. I think that's actually calisthenics are really peak human performance. When you can master calisthenics, it's so many different muscle groups.
Yeah, it's just your core. Your core is insane at that point. That's awesome.
Do you train calisthenics?
No, I don't. No. I don't. I mean, because also it's not cool when a skinny guy does it. I'm pretty skinny, so when a skinny guy does
don't
calisthenics,
say that.
I know, but it's like, it just doesn't
that.
work. You want to be the big gymnast. You know what I'm talking about? Like the gymnast guys, the ones that are doing the ring, like, you know, like the Olympics, like the male gym, like the gymnast that's a male is like, that's like peak. It's like, that is like,
yeah, they're alpha predator, like for sure. They have the most, gymnasts have the most leverage per pound of body weight than even bodybuilders.
Yeah, the most control is crazy. So, sorry, that's a completely tangential topic. I want to ask you more so because I just had a video recently for one of my clients go viral, talking about how he has all the people that he has working for him are from the Philippines, and he pays them from a range of like $5, $10 an hour, more, depending on what they're doing, and for them, he's saying like that's the main driver of why his business has been successful. The comment section for that video, and the reason it went viral, is because people hated him because he's saying, why are you only paying them $5 to $10 an hour? Talk to me about that, and talk to me about your perspective, because you told me beforehand, like when you were living in the Philippines, you were saying, man, these people are awesome. They're so intelligent. They're so like incredible. They're so hardworking. And it's almost like there's a disrespect because they're from a different country. 100%.
Yeah. I'll give you the best analogy that I can think of just offhand. So I was in Switzerland for a few weeks, in 2021, something like that. And my fiance and I were there, and we ordered a plate of fajitas at this Mexican restaurant in Switzerland, which, don't ask us why we did that, but we were craving Mexican food. And this plate of fajitas was like, if this is the plate, the actual fajitas portion was like this, right? So it was like very small amount, very high quality, whatever, but like very small amount. And the platter of fajitas was like $60, like $60 US. And so for people living in Switzerland that are used to paying Swiss exchange rates and Swiss prices, the United States looks like fairly inexpensive. Like if you go to the Midwest of the United States, like it's like cheap, right? So why is that okay, but not, like in the Philippines, I've lived there, like you can go out all day on a boat and have someone there with you fishing and helping you, set up a fire and have a whole meal and do a whole day excursion, and it's like less than $30 US. So I think because it involves humans and because it involves work, people are really sensitive to that. But the reality is, if you know about the difference in the cost of living, someone who's making $5, $6, $7, $8 an hour in the Philippines is living above middle class, and they have access. In our case, the benefit is that they have access to opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise. They have access to work with founders that are fucking awesome people, right? They're like really visionary thinkers that are you're not only getting paid to like earning a wage, but you're also learning from some of the best minds in the world. And so I think it's easy to there's always going to be haters. It's easy to play that game of like, oh, well, we should pay them fairly, but it's not. If you truly know the underlying economics, it's not like that.
Because the funny thing is, like, the comments were both in the range of like there's the socialist, or like like almost like Marxist, of like everyone should be paid equally based on whatever they're bringing to the table, the work they're doing, the value they're doing. And then there's the other side of it, of people that were offended of saying like you should only hire American, you should only buy American, you should only hire American, you should be so pro-America, and outsource is taking away a job from someone that should have it, even if it costs $50,000 versus $5 an hour. So talk to me about that, especially when it comes to executive assistants.
That's a fair point, and I actually tell this to clients all the time that have this exact question. They're like, well, not that exact question, but any kind of questions around like, well, why do you hire from the Philippines and stuff like that? And yes, number one, it is more economically viable. It's more approachable for most founders who are, if you've got between 2 and 20 employees, what we offer needs to be affordable, because you can't afford to hire somebody, an executive assistant in the States who's $100,000 a year. So that's one factor. But the second factor is actually more important, which is The culture of the United States is very individualistic. And the culture of countries like Latin America, the Philippines, Southeast Asia, culturally, they're much more service-oriented, right? And if I tried to run the same business in the United States, it would be very difficult. And the reason is, in the United States, when you're looking to hire an executive assistant, you're going to come across one of two scenarios. The first is you either find an executive assistant that is the quote-unquote executive assistant who's fresh out of college, they're eager to learn, but you may only be able to keep them around for 6 months, like 6 months, maybe a year, and because it's a stepping stone opportunity for them until they get to the next thing, until they get to a real opportunity, right? And with the other scenario you run into is you may have older people who have aged out of the profession, so they are executive admins that worked in corporate settings that maybe are a little less tech savvy. They're a little less used to the flow of the modern CEO, which is still evolving right now. Like as we speak, like you and I are talking, halfway across the world, and that's the norm. So
yeah,
you really need, I think the cultures that are very service oriented and very technical and stuff like that, like people in the Philippines and Latin America, it is a much better service, and it's a much better fit for those cultures.
So the other question I want to ask you, because I was talking to another founder about this, and he was similar in terms of his loving of systems, optimization, buying systems, tracking everything. And I was pitching him and saying, dude, having an executive assistant would be hugely valuable for you. But his argument back to me, and I was like, you can find someone pretty much your ideal client, right? And I was saying, why don't you do this? Why don't you at least put this energy, because it's so valuable for you and it buys back so much of your time. And he was saying, man, I would rather just use AI. I would rather just build systems and leverage AI for my email, for my calendar, for everything, and even for communication, because frankly, my AI can write emails for me and can learn my tone, and I'm looking into figuring out how they can duplicate my voice so that I can stop doing phone calls. And I was like, what? That's crazy. But I see founders in particular, like Silicon Valley types of people, saying, I would rather go this route. What's been your experience with that? And what's the barrier? Because I think there's a place for both. I just think that people tend to go to extremes if it has to be one or it has to be the other.
So yeah, when AI, when GPT, actually even before GPT, we have been talking internally about what are the risks to our business that are posed by AI becoming a big thing. And it is. AI is the largest change to our civilization since the internet or the wheel. And I don't think most people see it yet, but we're heavily involved in AI, and I'm really, really excited about what's happening. And you can see how monumental it really is based off of just the Sam Altman debacle that happened last week. 700 and something people were willing to go to a completely different company overnight. And so there's a lot of passion, and there's a lot of pent up, I wouldn't say pent up, but there's a lot of passion and a lot of motivation around moving civilization forward using AI. So for us, we are confident that executive assistants will still be needed and are still highly, highly valuable, because even if you string together different tools to help manage your email, manage your calendar, all that stuff, at the end of the day, founders come to us because they want a personalized, one-on-one, someone who knows them, who knows their preferences, who knows how they operate, how they speak, who's in their life, all of that stuff, and can act in real time. And so there's definitely tools that you can use to streamline your calendar and email. But at the end of the day, if you knew the breadth of tasks and responsibilities that an assistant could really help you with in your personal and business life, there's not, at least anytime soon, there's not AI that's going to disrupt that in a meaningful way.
Yeah, actually, and I would actually go even further and probably say like, I would love to have an executive assistant be the one using those tools, be the one managing.
That's the
those tools,
second
be the one
point.
That's
Yeah.
like, be the one that's like, because it's still like, is it valuable time for you to be monitoring email, even if it is automated, even if it is like, is it valuable time for you to oversee that versus delegating that and having someone else be a second person to you and your tone and your voice and your mission. I think there's an opportunity to probably leverage both at the same time, especially when it's like, especially considering the importance of leveraging both and having the assistant manage a lot. That just sounds so much more attractive to me, and I think it's, in reality, it's like, how do you optimize the people that are optimizing your life? Isn't that just going to improve everything?
Yeah, I think that's the answer too. That's what we came to at the end of all these discussions like a year ago when GPT first started becoming really popular. It was like, we need to train our team and maybe even go so far as to training other people's teams and becoming like true AI specialists. So internally, we've built a lot of really awesome tools. So this is just like a random example, but if you go on our website right now, and this is like a free tip for anybody that wants to build something like this, but if you go on our website right now, our lead magnet and the thing that we use to help people for free is they go in and they fill out some information about their company, their name, etc. And then we do a bunch of AI work on the back end to actually understand who they are, what are the tasks that they might have in a given day as a founder. And then we spit out all of those tasks like on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. And then which ones could we come in with an assistant and just like take off your plate. And so at the end of the report, it says like, hey, congrats, like 40% of this you don't have to do anymore, right? And that's all done with AI in the background. So we're heavy on this stuff. I think it's definitely the future. And if you're a company that isn't leveraging AI in some way right now, you're going to be... It's like back in the day when you had storefronts and people were like, "Do you have a website yet?" It's like, no. You will be left behind in most industries. So I think training our team and getting them up to speed on how to use AI and how to like speed up their workflows and improve the quality of the work they do with our clients has been really, really important to us. The lead magnet helps people to see what's possible and open their eyes to like, oh, I didn't even know that an assistant could set doctor's appointments for me. I didn't know that an assistant could, take care of this stuff.
All right, well, Ryan, so here's the deal. I know too much about you, so I have to ask you questions because you let slip that you produce music. And I looked through like your old Instagram posts, and I gotta say, I really, really like your music taste. I think like you have like Young the Giant. I heard you used to go to a bunch of concerts. I'm a huge music guy myself. I did the whole artist thing for a while. What is your relationship to music now? Because I was digging and I couldn't find stuff that you've produced. Is music a new thing that you're doing now? Is it something you've been doing all throughout this entrepreneurial endeavor? Like, tell me about it.
Yeah, so I grew up in Nashville actually. So I grew up in Music City. Mm-hmm. So everywhere I looked, there was music. There would be like people that would come over with their guitar and you just play, and make things. So music and instruments were everywhere around me. And so I've never known a life where that hasn't been the case. We grew up going to a lot of shows and going to a lot, like just, it was like a very common thing, like every weekend, who's coming to town. And we were lucky because we had people from all over the world that would come to this place and we got to see some of the best talent, like folk, indie, rock. Oddly enough, I don't listen to any country music because I just grew up around too much of it. We had friends and stuff like that were in the country music space, and we saw what they would do like on their when they weren't recording music, and it's like, you're not out in the field right now baling hay. You're not, it's like it's all for, it's entertain. It's music is sometimes entertainment for them instead of speaking from the heart. But I've always just loved music. I think it's a universal language of life. I think that no matter where you are in the world, like people.
There's no. All right, so I want to ask you. I know I'm going to intro this again. I know you're into music. So, first off, you mentioned before that you grew up in Nashville. That makes total sense. But I stalked you, and first off, all the stuff that you did with like all the pictures you have with your fiance, it's like, dude, this guy's got good music taste. You got Hozier in there. You got Young the Giant. You got some, like, and then I looked back even further, and I was like, look at you. You're doing promo for some shows. You're attending some shows. You're doing all this stuff. So like, what is your relationship to music? Because you have too nice of a setup in there, and I know you got kind of like a mini studio. So what's happening? What's your relationship with it?
Yeah, so I had this realization a few years ago that music is human consciousness stored in space and time, right? When you go to a Fleetwood Mac album, right, and you play an old school track from Fleetwood Mac, is it not clear to you when and where? Like, we're able to capture the emotions of people in a particular place and time, and I think I think that music for a lot of people is a form of entertainment, and it's like a thing that is part of the background. But I think that music is actually, and I've talked about this with friends, I have a theory that music is actually one of our core survival mechanisms as a species. And I've got on my arm here, I have an ape, right? I've got an ape with headphones on, right? And he's connected to this thing, and it's basically like human evolution through music in time. But the point is, think about music, right? Music, it's stories being told. Sometimes it's it's like these vibrational waves that help people process their emotions, right? Lowers stress, increases happiness, increases mating, right? Cautionary tales, things to look out for, things to help species survive more. And so if music, and you look at concerts, like music brings together a village. And I'm getting kind of esoteric here, but like concerts and music is like a village, and it's bonding and it's shared experience. And actually, if you look at all what's actually important for human survival, it's that stuff. So from a very like macro perspective, I think music is more important than the credit that we give it. And from a personal perspective, music has been the only thing that's ever mattered to me, really. And so, because I've been so focused on entrepreneurship for the longest time that like that indulges my my curiosity, and it indulges my like analytical brain. But what really lights me up and gets me going is making music, playing music, listening to music, sharing music, DJing, things like that. And so I love to co-produce with my friends and things like that. So I'm kind of like, I am more Rick Rubin than I am someone like Pharrell, right? Like really technical producers, or Timbaland. Like I'm Rick Rubin, so I don't have a lot of the skills.
Taste. I can. You have taste.
I have taste.
Like, yeah.
I can come in and say, hey, this melody, with a little bit of a change here and there, just really like piques my, like, I'm just like it scratches an itch. And so that's been my philosophy with, like, I have a close friend of mine. You guys can look him up on Spotify. His name is Hyperbits. His real name is Sarek. And we have a track that we did together that's got 500,000 streams. And
love it.
So it's like there was a moment probably last year where we spent weeks building out this track and laying down the keys, because I play keys and stuff like that. So we spent weeks doing this, and it was just this moment in time that I'll never forget, where the song was finally finished, and then we had this big event where there was like 150 people. It was on a yacht, and Sarek was going to be DJing, and we were going to debut our song for the first time. And our spouses and like close friends had heard some samples of the song, but when it first was released, and we had these gigantic speakers, and we're on the back of this yacht, and it was me and Sarek standing next to each other. And like, I mean, it gave me chills. It was the most incredible thing to see everybody in the crowd like dancing and having the time of it. Because it's giving me chills right now, actually.
Oh, that's
Like,
so cool.
so that was like peak life experience. And
actually, I'm curious though. Like, would you think? So say the business was outsourced to a point where like you could, it's running. You're moving to kind of like an investor level. You're at a point where you don't have to, it's not relying on you and your energy to do it. Would you dedicate your energy then to just making music? Like, is that kind of like where you see, like, if you could spend the rest of your life doing something, is that what you'd want to do?
Yeah, like when I do breath work or have any kind of like psychedelic experience, my my inner core calls for like making music. So to answer your question, I think that the goal is there's actually a guy in Dan Martell's group, Mark Himian. He was a Silicon Valley, I think, like design executive, and he then became an artist, and like later in life, and I think that that's definitely on the horizon for me. Like,
I love it.
5-10 years from now. So we'll see what it looks like. I just know that it could just be a hobby, right? But it's something that makes me feel alive.
I love it. Well, and I have to agree with you. Like, I think someone calls it like, what is it, like the Church of Rock and Roll? I think that's a Bono reference, but it exists to talk about like your, like the unifying experience that music has. I've felt it in a room of 10 people where it's like this intimate moment with whoever's playing the song and like just like the people in the room, and it's like, okay, I'm sharing something that feels unique here when they're good. And then I've also had that where it's like you're in a stadium, right? And I'm looking around and I'm like, I am not like, like there's so many people here that probably disagree about so many things.
So many things. Yeah.
Like they people that are in this room probably hate each other on some level. Like there's all sides of the spectrum. But when it comes to this and this song, we're all singing the same lyrics. We're all singing the same melody. We're all putting our fists in the air. We're all putting our hands in the air. We're all like pumped to be here and in this moment and experiencing this, which I can't think of anything else. Like, it's almost church. It's almost a religious kind of moment.
It is. I think like, I was in the church. I was in the church. I mean, I came from the South, so like religion and church and something was so baked into our culture. And I think that my love for music probably stemmed from a lot of those like transformational, I'm not still in the church anymore, but like a lot of those, some of the most like moving transformational art, like they are naturally drawn to, to worship music and stuff like that. And so, I was a part of that, and it's like such a part of our culture. It's like music moves you and music connects you. And
how much time do you spend like trying to discover new music?
That's actually something that I think is a big problem that I would love to have someone solve. I used to love the art of discovering music, keeping music, sharing music. So that's typically what a DJ does, right? And so a DJ, like it's a pretty laborious process though. And then there's like the hobbyist, which now it's just so hard to do that unless you're collecting vinyls. You've got Spotify where you can click through someone's entire life work in 10 seconds, which doesn't even give you the time to appreciate the work that went into it. And I think it's a huge problem. Like I still use Pandora as a discovery engine for finding new music. And then I also have, I think a great way to find music is to go watch live music and see who, if you've got an artist that is playing, who's opening for them, right? There's a lot of like really great connections that happen there.
Yeah. So what do you think about like, there's the, you kind of referenced it, but there's been a push towards, singles, top songs, playlists. Are you like an album guy? Are you like, I want to listen to the whole album and just like receive it as, there's people that are like purists that are like, I want to go through it the way they intended me to go through it. And then there's people that are like, just put it on shuffle and let me just vibe through the whole sonic experience.
For certain artists, definitely. Like I do that with artists that I really love. I can go through, like Fleet Foxes as an example. Like you don't go through and just pick a single Fleet Foxes song, right? Or with any of the new stuff that Hosier's put out, or people that I know respect the art of music. I definitely listen through the whole album, and I'll listen through it 100 times, until I get tired of it.
Yeah.
But with electronic music, though, I'm into electronic music heavily. I don't really find myself listening to the albums unless you're talking like Rufus Du Sol and stuff like that. I don't really listen to the albums. It's interesting. Like the genre of music dictates if there's a story being told in the album, which usually happens with certain genres, definitely. But if it's like just music that you want to vibe to, then that's I'm just listening to like singles.
I have to say, like, I completely agree in regards to depending on the genre dictates like whether I'm going to listen in shuffle versus, and it's, like, actually it is true. There are people that are like truly artists in terms of like how they approach it, right? Whereas like you can tell there's a difference between that and like a pop where it's like every person's kind of putting their, like half of it's written by some random other person and half of it's written intentionally by the person that's like, like it's half the time the pop artist isn't even writing the song. So for those, I'm feeling a little bit less like I care about it, but it's not. I'm not just talking about it's like a Bon Iver. Like I'm like I actually, what's really funny is like I'm starting to listen through like, like To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick. I'm like, that's not even like the genre of music that I generally listen to, but like I'm not shuffling through that. I'm like I can tell there's like an intention behind it, and I'm like let's just see what's happening. Let's go through the whole process.
I've lost sight of hip hop. When I should. Like I used to be really into rap and hip hop. Like back in the days when people would put mixtapes on Dat Piff and you would have to go and download off like these, it's like early days of Drake and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yep.
I miss that. Now it's just like, oh hey, you see Drake had a new album. Oh, that's cool. I might listen to it.
Drake put out 2 albums in the last month, effectively, which is crazy. That's the whole industry of it has completely changed in terms of like what's being prioritized. I actually still, I don't know, like I can't really say like I'm a rap really like a rap listener. Like I try to listen to enough genres of enough music to understand what's happening. But to pretend like I'm like really a part of it and like really following through that's just not the truth. So that's
my little brother does so he collects, he's got like lots of money invested into vinyl records, and he has a collection and is deep in the underground rap and hip hop game, and this person knows this person and this person came from this place and this is the inception story, and he has this like probably hundreds of vinyls, and he's like, this specific one I collected from this thing, and he'll sleep overnight at a record shop to go for record store day and get like these exclusive things. And I'm like, dude, you're crazy. But I think the essence of like my approach to art is the same. It's like I want to be around and consume art from people who give a shit. And giving a shit looks like, as an example, this tattoo that's on my right arm, this rose that's right here, is a photo. So the tattoo artist, he moved into a new home, and there was a world-renowned rose horticulturist, a lady who lived at this house before, and these were the final roses that were in this bed, this garden, before they all like die off, right? And he took a photo of it, and then literally it's saved forever, like on my wrist. And it's like that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, that has a story, it has meaning. And I think if you look at this is a hot take too. A lot of people might not like me for this, but I think Harry Styles is a brilliant musician. I think Harry Styles.
That's not a hot take. That's not a hot take. Come on.
That's not a hot take.
No.
He is one of those
awesome.
examples of like a true artist.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
To pretend, and he's also done both of the sides of this. I mean, I won't. To be honest, like I kind of hate on people that hate on pop. Like, and I get it, right? I get what you dislike. I get what people dislike, but like, there's an art to it too. There's an art, like the fact that you have to abide by such structure and still make it be distinct, it's difficult. It's difficult to be unique.
Pop is just a different tribe. It's just a different tribe that
100%.
you're attracting, right? Like
100%. Yeah.
Pop
and
is, yeah.
And the type of people, like, I mean, like, Ryan Tedder's awesome. He's an incredible songwriter. You know, like, it's just, he's
Who's
written.
that?
Ryan Tedder, he's the lead singer of One Republic. But he wrote like all the #1 hits. He wrote like Halo by Beyonce. He wrote like half of the Jonas Brothers' popular songs nowadays. Like he wrote like
wow.
all the stuff. If there's a #1 album, the #1 song, he or John Bellion probably wrote it. And I'm just like, you know what? Like the fact that John Bellion can go do what he did on his album and everyone's like, man, what a purist, what an artist. And he can still go and write a Justin Bieber record. I'm like, dude, that takes skill. That's crazy hard. It's crazy hard to be able to play both sides and be like, yeah, I have my own little thing where I'm trying to be experimental, and I'm also curating something that can be literally heard by every person in the world and be, you know, I think there was one point he had the top 3 songs on Billboard, which is just like, that's just impressive. So I appreciate the skill comes from both spectrums. If I had a hit where I feel most safe and most comfortable, I'm probably still listening to just like alternative rock or like alt indie or that. That's just kind of like where I like the bandy stuff. That's kind of like where I sit. It just makes me feel.
Yeah,
it's what I used
take
to play.
you
It's
for
what
that
I used
kind
to
of
do.
person. I do.
It's people I try to copy. So it's just like that's
Yeah.
where I lived. Which everyone wants to be that. You know, like everyone wants to be old Coldplay. That's what everybody wants to be. If you're starting a band, you're like, I would love to be like. I would love to be like Rush of Blood to the Head, Coldplay, and it's like, let's do it.
Yeah, I think there's an issue though that it's like I'm wondering where the industry goes. Right now, it's easier than ever to actually make music. It's harder than ever to actually, even if you're a great musician, it's hard to actually be compensated and rewarded and stuff like that. And so it's like I just wonder where it's all going. I think. I had a really incredible experience when I was living in the entrepreneur house. I had met this singer-songwriter online. His name is Jude Smith. You should go look him up.
I know him.
He's incredible.
I know that guy. Yeah,
he's okay. So Jude he's got the voice of Justin Timberlake and the guitar skills of John Mayer, right? And so I have a video clip of him, and I've posted it, I think, on my page. But I've got a video clip of him where he's just so in the pocket, and he's literally in our house. We met online, and then 6 months later, he's like, yeah, I was like, do you want to come out here? Like, we're gonna set up like a private acoustic candlelit show. I'll promote it. I'll get all my friends. We had somebody from the Killers who came like here in San Diego, and it was one of these things where it was like so awesome and so special and so rare that I was kind of left like disillusioned afterward, because I'm like, how is, you know, like he was coming across all the way from Nashville, and he did a thing where he's like, Jude plays for gas or sings for gas. So it's like every time he's at a gas station, people would send requests, like a $10 Venmo, and he would like record a 30-second clip or whatever it is. And I'm like, it just shouldn't be that way. The people that move you and allow you to like express emotion and feel and all these things that are so valuable to society, why is it that art is the thing that our society chose to devalue? It doesn't make sense to me. But it is what it is, I guess.
The only thing I can fight against that is just like I think it's never been easier to find a community and to find people like you. We live in a place where it's like you just put something out that's quality, and you do it for a long enough period of time, and people are going to find you. At first, it might not be the right people, and it might take longer than you want it to be. But if what you're putting out is actually good, and you're just consistent to publicize it, like. The issue is that you just can't. There's no longer a time where you can just put out a song and have it just exist, and then people are going to be uproariously affectionate towards you, and they're like, oh my goodness, we're like, the only time that happened was with that guy, old man from Richmond, that guy. But even then, that was a marketing stunt, and you know, like that was a little bit of it was intentional. Like yes, he was a genuine guy. Yes, it was kind of underground, but like. No one that doesn't just happen. There's a lot of things that have to happen in order for that just to happen. So in the same sense, like, yeah, I do hope that artists more often, like I have friends where I'm just like, dude, just put the song out. Put out a song and put out a video every day. And if it's good and the videos are good, it's going to work. If it sucks, move on to the next one. Try it again. But I think there's a lot of people that are like, when we talk about art, you talk about being a purist, you're like, this is it. This is the thing. And if anything sifts out any goodness from it, it's no longer it. And I'm like, that's
one of the reasons why I haven't pursued art to the degree that I want to, is because like I operate at such a high level, like, and I have such high expectations that but now I understand, just like any journey, it's a process of learning, it's a process of trying, and like my journey in the gym is a great example of like, there was this in this last year, I've maybe missed it twice, but like every single day, no matter how I feel, no matter how much sleep I've gotten, no matter how I feel about actually going and working out, if I've lost sight of the goal or whatever it is, I just go do it. And the results for me have been incredible. And I think like the same thing, now that I've learned that discipline, that was my goal last year, is like really understanding the true meaning of discipline. You can apply that to other areas. And I think like successful artists are doing the same thing. Like I've talked with several people, and I know their personal lives, and it's like they just show up and they do and they do and they do and they do.
I love that. All right, well, so I want to transition to this last section. I saw some posts that you had, and something that stuck out to me is, so like you speak very affectionately about your dad, and for me, I think that's rare. I interact with a lot of people growing up, and a lot of people, my age and older, and their relationship with their dad in particular, almost always negative. At best, it's like, I respected what he did, or, I can tell he tried. And I'm in that rare exception where I'm like, my dad was my best man. He, is the best person I've ever known. And like, he's still to this day the person I respect the most. And I haven't interacted with someone that has any sort of close level of affection where it's like, like you're talking about how you worked, you spent 6 months with your dad on a business, and you saw, you saw him grinding at 53, and that's at a different tier, and you just had that experience with him, and then still, even so, like, you're like, there's so much affection that you had. Tell me about your relationship and what's, every relationship has ups and downs, every relationship has negatives, and normally that dynamic is awful, especially for entrepreneurs, especially for go-getters. What's been part of it that you respect about your dad and respect about, who he is as a person?
Well, I think for context, like, I have two dads. I grew up actually from age 1 to 18 with a stepdad, and I lived in Tennessee, and he raised me, took care of me. And then on my 18th birthday, while I was in high school, at lunch, I got a call from a guy that I didn't know, and I knew that he existed, and I had received these like random gifts when I was like 4 or 5 years old, where like the gift, it was like a riddle I had to solve. It was like cryptic message that I had to figure out. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, who is this guy? I didn't say that when I was 5. I was like, goo goo gaga,
Yeah.
But 18 years old, I get a call from this guy, and it was basically like, hey, it's your 18th birthday, and I haven't been able to be a part of your life, like legally up until now, but I want to, yada, yada, yada. He wanted to get to know me. We wanted to talk and all this stuff. And it took me years to actually like develop any level of trust. My relationship with my stepdad was, and still is, strained. And it's like, he was a great provider, and someone who always made sure that we were always taken care of, and he was very disciplined and always make sure that we were very disciplined and all this stuff. But the side of our relationship where there's love and understanding and things like that was always something that was challenging. So in walks this guy at 18 who immediately accepts me for who I am and skipped past a lot of the, the hard stuff, right? But I'm accepted for who I am. I'm trusted. I belong. I'm loved unconditionally. And it absolutely changed my life. Like, I would not be here at all if it weren't for him. And our relationship has been 99.9% just an incredible ride, an incredible journey. It's like we've started businesses together. We have seen each other's absolute bottom. Like when we were in New York and we were starting this project, like we had nothing left. We were, it was like the house was up for potential foreclosure in a month. The cars were being taken away. And we're, he lives a very good life and has a nice home and has, all this stuff. And my brother was in private school and all this stuff. And all that stuff was at risk. And I've never seen a person fight so hard for his family like I have with him. And it was just like so inspiring to see. Like literally lost it all, had nothing left. Was down to last dollars, last bit of hope. Like, I would hear him on the phone crying, like, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And that same year, we do a project and it's like $1.4 million, right? And we're like, we're making it together. And we're like, I'm watching, there was actually a point in New York where we were about to leave the city. It was like 4 months in. We couldn't close the deal down. We couldn't get an insurance policy that would allow us to actually fulfill the work, right? And we had spent all this time and energy and money trying to make all this happen. And it was like literally if I had a camera, I wish I could have captured it. Like we were zipping up our bags and we were about to leave to fly back to our individual states. And all of a sudden he gets a phone call. And I didn't hear that he got a phone call, but all I heard was like downstairs, in the flat that we were staying in downstairs, I just hear him going, fuck yes, let's go. You're like screaming, right? And it was a call from the MTA that basically said like, we got the award and we could start doing it. And it was like just the most gut-wrenching, happiest, highest moments of my life. We're down in these tunnels and we had to go through railroad training and we're wearing orange jumpsuits and we've got trains whizzing by us and we're like doing this as a, father and son. So there's been a lot of really incredible moments where we built these incredible bonds and we've been through hard things. There's been like, we made a lot of money. It's like, what do you do with that? And how do you treat, who gets what and all this stuff. And the one thing that he's always been really great at is just communication. And he won't let a day go by, where if there's an issue that needs to be talked about, it's like, hey, there's this issue and I know it's here and I'm sorry and, whatever. So, yeah, I love my dad. He's an awesome guy. And I'm excited to have the rest of my life I love both my dads. They're just different,
Yeah. Well, tell me about that. Cause I think do you think that you were at all benefited by the fact that your dad was not in your life for those 18 years? Do you think that the fact that you almost
100%.
became a man without him, and so you could then establish this is our new relationship from point zero. Do you think that was like a benefit?
Everything is a benefit, right? Like my whole makeup, my makeup as a human comes from all the experiences that I've had. And so there's been some things that I've had to go through therapy and unlearn about myself and unlearn about the world. And there's been things that I'm so grateful for, my first 18 years of life that I learned how to be savvy and I learned how to think on my toes and do things for myself. I mean, when I was having to pay for all my own stuff when I was as soon as I turned 18 and I had to pay my way through college and I had to learn how to get jobs to fund my way through school. And so all that stuff, those experiences, whether they were intentional on his end or not, they have, formed me into who I am now. And then enter dad number two, right? And you layer in the emotional component, you layer in the love, and you layer in the incredible support and trust. And it's like, yeah, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I mean, I really am. And I'm so excited that that's the case. And I'm stoked for you too. Like having a and my mom's amazing too. So like I got really, really lucky. And that story is something that I wouldn't change at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's making me think like there's such an importance uniquely to paternal care. I think I think every relationship, every person needs both maternal and paternal influences. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dad and mom, but to pretend like it's not lacking unless you have both in there is so interesting to me, because I think like it's just so apparent. And hearing what you're saying, like,
no pun intended.
yeah, it's true. That's dumb. But like I have a son, right? And so hearing what you just said, shapes my perspective a little bit, because I have my relationship with my dad and I have my perspective. And a lot of times people start to raise their kids and they're like, I want to do the exact opposite of whatever my dad did. And I'm trying to be like, a lot of times I'm like, I would love to be half the man that my dad was. And I think there's an element to it where it's like, there's so much we don't control. And I think what your story is kind of affirming that like, there's benefits to whatever happens, because no matter what, you're made up as you're made up. And you can either be a victim to it, or you can be, you can see it as a gift. I love that you've seen it as a gift and you've cherished kind of like this second part of your life, as these influences are coming in. So like now that you're engaged, you're looking to get married, what does legacy mean to you when it comes to the business, when it comes to your family, when it comes to your legacy? I know it's a big word, but like we talk so much about, like, you're talking about art, you're talking about, like music is something that lasts throughout time. And a lot of times entrepreneurs are like, we think these big things. We think like, what is our meaning? What is our purpose? Who are we helping? How can we help those people more? What does that look like for you? What's a successful life in your eyes, whether it's an exit in this or whether it's a continuation of it?
Success for me in my life is defined for me as my ability to be a portal to the world for all the ones that I love, right? So for me, when I say a portal to the world, I mean physically, like travel, being able to see, experience, interact with other cultures and people and learn. It's also, a portal to like love and abundance and empowerment and all that stuff. So my goal is to and that's why entrepreneurship is so attractive, because it's like the best way to develop those, obviously financially is important, but like to develop your ability to relate to other people and your ability to learn things and develop as a person. And it's like the best personal development workshop out there. But legacy doesn't really, like, I think there's a lot of ego attached to legacy. It's like, oh, I want to build a legacy. And it's like, I don't really give a shit about legacy, honestly. What matters to me is I think that our the only real impact I have is like my consciousness will be, for better or for worse, stored in parts of me, will be stored in my kids and the people that I love and the people that I'm surrounded by, right? And so my legacy is, how do I show up in the world on a day-to-day basis, and what do I want to stick? And do I want to create more trauma? Do I want to create more problems? Do I want to create more sadness and pain and hurt? Well, then that's an option, right? Do I want to create more love and abundance and acceptance and empowerment and all that stuff? Like, I think that's legacy. Like, I want my children to take the best parts of me and run with them and get rid of the ones that don't serve them. That's what I think of when I think of legacy.
I think it's powerful. That's a good point. I think it's a good point.
That's all that matters. It's not.
To your point, like I think I agree with you that like it doesn't really exist, because if you scope back, like we don't think about the most powerful people 1,000 years ago. Maybe they're a movie, but they're not going to be anything more than that. And even that goes to 50 years ago. Like I can't name every president, and we're supposed to say the president's the most powerful position in the United States. So it's like Is it really important?
Yuval Harari did a great job with this. If you ever read *Sapiens*, he said, 2,000 years ago, the Sumerians or Somalians, I think it was Somalians ruled the world, right? Most powerful army. And historians on this podcast are going to crush me, but I'm using this as an analogy, right? Somalians are the most powerful, and whatever. And it's like 2,000 years later, can you name a single Somalian? It's like no. Yeah. So ultimately, my dad actually called me the other day, and he was kind of joking around. It was like he was sleepy, and it was right before bed, and he's like, man. He's like, we're all just dust in the wind. He's like, cool, you're doing cool stuff, great. Like, you got a business, you're getting married, cool, but like, none of it really matters. He's like, we're all just, you're gonna die, we're gonna die, and not to be like, not to be morose, but it is. I genuinely believe that it's true. It's like we can do what we can while we're alive, and people put so much importance into these things that ultimately don't matter. Yesterday, Warren Buffett's partner in Berkshire Hathaway, one of the wealthiest, is multi-billionaire, he died, right?
Yeah.
I forgot about it when I woke up this morning. Right?
How often do you think about Queen Elizabeth?
Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth, she died.
Yeah.
And I think we have to think about things like that. And so I am personally constantly battling between like, why do I give a shit about anything? And, there is some meaning, there's some meaning to things. So I'm still learning how to and what to assign meaning to in my life. But I think love, and I think connection, and I think, doing what you love and doing it for other people, I think is pretty important. But that probably will shift over time. I know when you have kids, apparently everything changes, and your world and your worldview changes. I just have a dog, so
yeah. I mean, I will say, like, I think I completely agree with you, because if you have a certain perspective, the fact that nothing really matters is a little bit freeing, right? Because it means that, like, yep, I have the opportunity to create what I want to create, and it's okay if it burns, but I'm enjoying the process of creating it. Like, that can be a depressing thought, right? Like super nihilistic, or it can just be like, you know what? I'm at peace with that. I think I haven't heard that answer from many other people. I think it sounds like you've watched a decent amount of Alex Hormozi, so we're probably influenced by the same people.
I mean, maybe Hormozi should watch some of my content. I think
maybe.
We both been on the same journey. We both been on the same journey at the same time. It's like I've gone to the depths of nothing matters, and then now it's like, well, let's recalibrate, because there are things that really do matter.
Yeah.
But
I love it.
Yeah, just live your life.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate your time, man. I'm glad we started in a kind of like a business tactical state, and then we ended in this. Didn't expect it to take this turn, but we ended in this cool philosophical place. I hope that's helpful for people that hear it. And can you just where can people find you if people want to work with you? What can people do? How can people connect with you to find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So my personal Instagram, Ryan Brazzell, Brazzell. A lot of my content and stuff goes through there. Our website for Assistant Launch is www.assistantlaunch.com, and you can reach out on either of those platforms. And go listen to Another Life by Hyperbits on Spotify, and you can hear a little bit of my musical influence. Or email me, ryan@assistantlaunch.com. Those are the best places to reach.
Love it. Yeah, I'll spin your stuff. I'm excited to listen to it. We'll have links in the show notes for anybody else that wants to connect with it. So, Ryan, thanks for being here, and everyone, thanks for listening. If you got value, share it with one person. I appreciate you. We'll see you on the next one.